The night was heavy with smoke and strange lights. The human walked slowly into the marketplace, a place whispered about by travelers as the market of chains. It was no ordinary market. It was where lives were sold. Cages lined up under the pale glow of alien lanterns. Each cage carried someone broken, someone forgotten, and someone waiting for a hand that would never come. He kept his head low, trying not to draw attention. Vendors shouted in rough alien voices, waving hands, showing slaves, prisoners, and rare creatures like trophies. The air smelled of sweat, rust, and fear. He felt sick, but he kept walking. His boots crunched over the dusty ground. His eyes scanned the cages without meaning to, then stopped when he heard it. A voice softer than the rest. "Save me, human." The words froze him. He turned his head, thinking he imagined it. But there she was. A young alien girl pressed against the bars of a small iron cage. Her eyes glowed faintly, not from tricks of light, but from something deep inside her. Her face was pale, her skin marked with patterns like silver lines. She was trembling, but her gaze was steady. He stepped closer, trying not to look obvious. "What did you say?" he whispered. Her lips moved again. "Save me, human, please." The trader standing nearby noticed his stare and gave a sharp laugh. "That one?" The alien trader spat. "She is useless, too weak. Look at her. She will not last long." But then his smile turned thin. "But her DNA, her DNA is priceless. Humans like you cannot afford her." The human frowned, his chest tightening. He wanted to ask what that meant, but he already understood. She was not just another prisoner. She was something more, something dangerous. The trader leaned closer, whispering as if sharing a secret. "Her blood heals wounds. Her cells can awaken things that should sleep. That is why she is in the cage. Not dead already. The warlords want her alive, and they will pay." The girl shook her head, pressing her forehead against the iron bars. "Do not listen to them, please. I am not what they say. I just want to be free." The human felt heat in his chest, anger, mixing with pity. He saw the other cages, saw how the crowd laughed, saw how no one cared. And yet here was this small voice, reaching him, calling him. He whispered back, "If I try to help, they will kill me too." Her hand reached through, the bars small and trembling, her eyes locked on his. "Then let me die free, not in chains. Please save me." The crowd around them grew louder. A fight broke out between two drunken buyers. Guards pushed through, the chaos giving him a chance to breathe. His heart raced, his hands clenched. He knew walking away was safer, easier. He knew the galaxy was cruel and one man could not change it. Yet the thought of leaving her behind felt heavier than chains on his own wrists. He stepped even closer, whispering so only she could hear, "What is your name?" Her lips trembled. "I do not know. They never gave me one." The human swallowed hard. He stared at her as the trader shouted prices to others. He saw not a weapon, not a prize, but a child who had been stripped of everything, even her name. The market felt colder than before, darker than before, and the sound of her plea would not leave his ears. He turned slightly, pretending to move away, but his mind was burning. He heard the trader mocking behind him. "Run along, human. You cannot pay the price. No one can. She will die in a cage. That is her fate." But her eyes followed him, desperate and full of hope, and her whisper echoed, again in his memory, "Save me, human." His steps slowed, his breath uneven. He knew this was no accident, no passing moment. Something inside him refused to let go. He turned back once more, his face set in quiet resolve. He was only one man in a dangerous market, but tonight, he felt the beginning of something bigger. The girl's trembling hand still reached through the bars, waiting. He looked at her, and without another word, he reached out and touched her fingers. The world around them did not stop, but for her, it was the first time someone had answered her call, and for him, it was the first step into a story that would change both their lives forever. The human's hand lingered on the alien girl's trembling fingers. For a moment, he felt the weight of her fear and the sharp spark of her hope. But before he could speak again, the trader noticed, his eyes narrowed. his voice rising over the noise of the market. "Do not touch her unless you mean to buy." The trader growled. His sharp teeth flashed in the dim light. He waved his clawed hand at the crowd, drawing attention. "This girl is no common slave. She is a treasure, a miracle of flesh and blood, and her value is greater than the stars themselves." The human stomach twisted as the crowd turned toward her cage, eyes filled with greed, whispers spreading like fire. Some spoke of using her blood to heal entire armies. Others whispered of awakening ancient machines buried under ruins. It was madness, a storm of desire building in every gaze. The trader leaned closer to the human, his voice low but venomous. "Do you want her, human? Then pay the price. The price of blood is not cheap, for her veins carry secrets worth empires. What do you have to offer?" The human tried to keep his face calm, though inside he was raging. He had nothing. No riches, no treasures, only a few coins and the clothes on his back. The girl's glowing eyes stayed locked on him, silent now, as if she knew speaking again would only make things worse. He whispered back, "You're selling her like an object. She's not a thing to trade." The trader's laughter rang out, cruel and loud. "Not an object? Foolish human. In this galaxy, everything has a price, even life itself." His claws tapped the bars of the cage, making the girl flinch. "And she is more valuable than you can imagine. Her DNA is unique. It can bind to any species, heal any wound, awaken sleeping weapons, even alter the future of entire worlds. That is why warlords offer mountains of gold for her." The human's fists clenched. He wanted to strike the trader, but he knew that would only bring guards. He tried to breathe, tried to think, but the noise of the crowd grew louder. More buyers were gathering, voices shouting higher offers. Some pulled out shimmering crystals, others waved contracts of slavery. The price was climbing beyond reason. The girl pressed her forehead to the bars, whispering so softly he barely heard her. "Please, don't let them take me." Her voice cut through him, sharper than any blade. He looked at her, and for the first time he saw past the glowing eyes and trembling hands. He saw a child who had never been free, who had never known kindness. His chest tightened. He had no fortune, no army, no plan, but he had a choice. He could walk away, or he could try the impossible. The trader's smile widened. "If you cannot pay, step aside, human. Do not waste my time." The crowd pressed closer, eager for the deal to be struck. The girl's hand reached out again, fingers trembling. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave me here. I will die." The human's mind raced. He thought of all the warnings he had heard about this market, how no one left without blood on their hands. He thought of his own life, wandering, empty, meaningless. And then he thought of her voice calling him, not as a slave begging a master, but as someone begging to be seen, to be saved. He shook his head, forcing his voice steady. "I will not leave her." The trader's laughter stopped. His eyes narrowed into slits. "Then pay, human. What do you offer for the price of blood?" The human reached into his pocket, pulling out the few coins he had. He set them down on the trader's table. The crowd burst into laughter, cruel and mocking. Some shouted insults, others threw scraps at him. The trader's face twisted with, "Are you mocking me? You dare insult the value of what I own?" The human's heart pounded. He knew he had nothing more to give, but he did not move. He placed his hand on the cage again, steady, his voice low. "I offer what no warlord can. I offer my life. I will fight for her. I will protect her, and no one here can match that price." The crowd hushed for a moment, then erupted again in shouts and anger. The trader's eyes flared. His claws slammed on the table. "Your life is worthless compared to hers. Human blood is dirt. Her blood is gold." He pointed to the guards. "Take him away. He dares insult the market of chains." Heavy footsteps thundered as guards pushed through the crowd. Weapons gleamed. In their hands, the girl gripped the bars, her voice breaking. "No, don't take him, please." The human's eyes met hers one last time as the guards closed in. His mind was already turning, already planning. He knew he could not win this with money. He would have to win it with something else, something far more dangerous, and deep in his heart. He swore that no matter the cost, he would not let her blood be sold. The guards pushed through the crowd. Their armor gleamed under the dull market lights, weapons in their hands ready to strike. The human stood still, his breath steady, though his heart thundered inside his chest. Around him, voices shouted, laughed, and cursed. The trader's voice cut through them all. Seize him, he insults the market of chains. The alien girl pressed her small hands to the cage bars, her voice shaking. Please don't let them take you. Her eyes glowed, faintly, like tiny stars fighting against the dark. The human's gaze met hers, and in that moment he knew he had only one choice. He reached down, his hand closing around a loose metal rod lying near the ground. His body moved before thought could stop. Him. With a sharp cry, he slammed the rod against the lock of her cage. Sparks flew. The crowd gasped. The trader roared in rage. Stop him! The lock cracked, the old iron snapping apart. The girl gasped as the cage door swung open. She stumbled forward, falling into his arms. For a heartbeat, time froze. Her fragile body pressed against his chest, the noise of the market fading. Then the storm broke. Guards rushed in, weapons raised. Blaster fire tore through the air, burning the dust into smoke. The human ducked low, dragging the girl with him. The first guard swung his blade, but the human shoved the metal rod forward, striking the guard across the face. The alien dropped. With a howl, the girl cried out, clinging to him. Her voice trembled. You'll be killed, stop. But he shook his head, his eyes fierce. Not tonight. He pulled her close and ran, weaving through the chaos. Shouts and screams filled the air as merchants fled. Cages rattled and other prisoners screamed for freedom. The market was falling into madness. Another guard blocked their path, aiming a blaster. The human shoved the girl behind him and threw the rod with all his strength. It struck the weapon, knocking it sideways. The blaster fired into the crowd, sending panic through the buyers. In the confusion, he grabbed the girl's hand and bolted through the smoke. They rushed past rows of broken stalls, overturned crates, and frightened slaves. The human's lungs burned, his muscles screamed. But he did not slow. Behind them, the trader's voice thundered, Do not let them escape. Double the reward for anyone who brings her back alive. The girl stumbled, too weak to keep pace. He lifted her into his arms, holding her close against his chest. Her breath was shallow, her body trembling as if every step drained her strength. Yet her eyes stayed on him, glowing brighter in the chaos. Blaster fire scorched the ground near his feet. Sparks and smoke filled the air. A guard swung down from above, blocking the narrow alley. The human roared, lowering his shoulder and slamming into the guard with all his weight. The alien fell back into the shadows. His arm throbbed with pain, but he did not stop. The girl whispered in his ear, her voice faint. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. His answer came without thought. Because no one else would. They burst out of the narrow alley into the open streets beyond the market. Night stretched wide above them, the sky filled with pale moons and distant stars. But freedom was not yet theirs. The sound of boots and weapons echoed behind them, growing louder. The human's legs carried them across stone bridges, down twisting paths, through the maze of the old city. Every corner threatened a trap, every shadow held danger. Yet he pressed forward, his grip on her never loosening. At last they reached the outer wall. The gates were guarded, torches blazing. Escape seemed impossible. He crouched behind a broken pillar, breathing hard. The girl's eyes searched his face. You cannot fight them all, we will be caught. The human looked at her, his jaw set. Then we make a hole they cannot close. He scanned the wall, spotting a weak section near the old ruins. With a grunt he kicked at the cracked stones again and again. His boots split the mortar, dust rained down. The girl pressed her hands against the wall too, her skin glowing faintly. Suddenly the stones shifted as if answering her touch. A gap opened wide enough for them to squeeze through. The guards shouted behind them, rushing closer. But the human pulled her through the gap, squeezing into the wild forests beyond the city walls. The smell of trees and rain filled the air, free and alive. Blaster fire lit up the night behind them. Guards poured through the streets, searching. The human stumbled forward, carrying her deeper into the forest, branches snapping underfoot. Shadows swallowed them as the city lights faded. At last, when his body could go no further, he dropped to his knees beside a stream. The girl lay against his chest, her breath ragged but steady. She looked up at him with tired, glowing eyes, whispering, "You risked everything for me." "Why?" He stroked her hair gently, his voice quiet. "Because you asked me to." The night closed around them, but for the first time since the market of chains, she felt hope. And for the first time in his life, he felt he had done something that mattered. The forest stretched wide and endless. The tall trees rose like towers, their silver leaves glowing faintly under the light of the moons. Shadows danced between the roots, and the sound of night creatures echoed in the distance. The human moved carefully, carrying the alien girl in his arms. Every branch crack, every whisper of wind felt like a warning. Behind them, the city still roared with alarms. But the forest swallowed their presence. He set her down gently near a fallen log. Her body was weak, her breath uneven. She curled into herself, trembling. He tore a piece of cloth from his own shirt, dipped it into the stream, and pressed it against her forehead. "Rest, you're safe here," he whispered, though he was not sure if it was true. Her glowing eyes opened slightly. She studied him. In silence, as though weighing his soul, finally she whispered, "Why? Why did you save me?" He looked at her, his face tired, his voice steady. "Because you asked, because no one else would." She turned her face away, tears sliding down her cheeks. "You do not understand. You cannot understand. I am not just a prisoner. I am not just a girl in chains. I am something worse." He leaned closer, his voice calm. "Tell me." Her hands trembled as she reached to touch the patterns on her skin. The silver lines shimmered faintly. "I was made in a lab, not born in a home. My DNA was changed, mixed with things I don't even know. They wanted to create a weapon, something that could heal soldiers, awaken machines, even bend life itself. I was their experiment, their curse. That is why they cage me. That is why the warlords hunt me." The human's chest tightened. He listened without interrupting. The weight of her words pressed heavy in the air. Finally he said, "And what do you want? Do you want to be a weapon? Do you want to be what they made you?" She shook her head fiercely. "No, I want to be free. I want to live like a person, not a tool. But every time I breathe, I feel their hands inside me. I feel their chains." Her voice broke. She covered her face, sobbing softly. The human reached out, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are not a weapon," he said, his voice firm. "You are alive. You are more than what they tried to make you." She froze at his words, slowly lowering her hands. Her glowing eyes widened. "No one has ever said that to me before. Not once. They all look at me and see power, see danger, see a prize, but you see me." The forest was silent for a moment, only the sound of the stream flowing nearby. The human leaned back, staring at the sky through the canopy. The stars shimmered, distant and cold. "I see someone who deserves more than chains," he said softly. "I see someone worth protecting." The girl hugged her knees, staring at him with a mixture of confusion and hope. "But you risk your life for me. They will not stop. The warlords will send hunters. They will come for us." He nodded slowly, his face set. "Let them come. I will not let them take you." Her lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. She watched him, and for the first time she felt a strange warmth in her chest, something she had never felt before. It was trust, fragile but real. The night grew colder. A distant howl echoed through the forest. The human gathered branches and built a small fire. The flames flickered, casting soft light across their faces. She stretched her hands toward the warmth, her skin glowing brighter under the firelight. For a moment she looked less like a weapon, less like an experiment, and more like a lost child who had finally found shelter. She whispered, "If they find us, I will not let them hurt you. I will surrender. I cannot let you die because of me." His eyes snapped to hers, sharp and steady. "No, do not say that. Your life is not theirs to take. It is yours, only yours. Do you hear me?" Her breath caught. She nodded slowly, her voice breaking. "No one has ever said that to me either." The fire crackled between them, and silence stretched, but it was no longer heavy. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was more than her DNA. more than her blood. She felt seen. The human leaned back against the log, exhaustion pulling at him, his eyes closed. But his hand stayed close to the rod he had carried from the market. The girl stayed awake longer, watching him, her glowing eyes soft with a kind of wonder. She had seen men before, cruel and greedy. She had seen warlords who wanted her power, scientists who treated her like glass. But she had never seen someone like him, someone who risked everything just to call her a person. As the night deepened, she lay down beside the fire, whispering a promise only the trees could hear. I will not let them take this from me. Not again. The forest held them in its quiet arms, and for a brief, fragile moment, the hunted girl and the weary human knew peace. Even as the shadows beyond the trees stirred with the approach of hunters, the forest that had seemed calm at night grew, restless with the rising sun. Strange birds cried from the treetops, and the wind carried whispers of danger. The human rose from his place beside the dying fire, his body sore, his mind heavy. He looked at the alien girl sleeping curled against a tree, her glowing skin faint in the early light. For a moment he let himself breathe, but then he heard it, the distant echo of horns. Hunters. He shook her gently. Wake up. They are coming. Her eyes snapped open, glowing brighter in fear. They found us, she whispered. Her hands trembled as she stood. They will not. Stop. They will chase me until I am dead. The human squeezed her hand, steadying her. Then we run together. They moved quickly through the thick woods. Their steps were careful but fast, their breaths sharp in the morning air. Behind them the sound of horns grew louder, joined by the pounding rhythm of boots and the hiss of alien hounds. The warlords had unleashed their trackers. The girl stumbled on a root, her body still weak from hunger and exhaustion. The human caught her, lifting her onto his back without a word. She clung to him, whispering, You cannot carry me and fight them. Leave me. Save yourself. He growled, his voice low. I will not leave you. Don't ask me again. Branches snapped as shadows moved through the forest. Dark figures darted between the trees. Their armor gleamed. Their weapons pulsed with energy. The hunters spread wide, circling, closing in. The human felt the walls of the forest pressing, tighter, but he did not stop. He followed the stream, hoping it would wash away their scent. The girl pressed her face against his shoulder, her glowing eyes scanning the woods. They are close, I can feel them. He set her down near the water and crouched, scooping mud into his hands. He smeared it across her glowing skin, covering the silver lines that betrayed her. She gasped softly. What are you doing? Hiding your light, he answered. If they see you shine, we are finished. Her eyes softened, and for the first time she gave a small smile, fragile but real. No one has ever thought of protecting me this way. Before he could reply, a howl split the forest. The alien hounds had found their trail. Their glowing eyes cut through the trees, their sharp teeth bared. The hunters followed behind, voices harsh and eager. The human grabbed the metal rod, his only weapon, his jaw clenched. Run when I say, do not stop. She shook her head, clutching. His arm, no, if you fight, I stay, I will not leave you. He stared at her, his heart tightening. Then stay close, but do not let go. The hounds leapt from the shadows, teeth snapping. He swung the rod with all his strength, striking one across the head. The beast yelped, crashing into the underbrush. Another lunged, but he shoved his shoulder into it, forcing it back. The girl cried out, her hands glowing as if her fear awakened something inside her. Suddenly, the hound that had bitten his arm froze, whimpering. Its wound closed, its body shuddering as if confused. The girl's eyes widened. I didn't mean to. My blood. It heals even them. The human grit his teeth, shoving the creature away. Then save your strength. We cannot help them, only ourselves. They broke into a run, weaving through the trees. The girl stumbled again, her glowing fading as her strength drained. He lifted her once more, carrying her as the hunters' voices closed in. Arrows of energy hissed past his head, burning holes in the trees. He ducked and rolled, shielding her with his own body. Pain shot through his shoulder as a blast grazed him, but he did not stop. She pressed her glowing hands against the wound, and the pain eased. Her gift had healed him even in the middle of their flight. He gasped, his voice rough. "You keep me alive, I keep you safe. That is our promise." The hunter shouted commands, their footsteps pounding closer. The human spotted a cave hidden behind heavy vines. Without hesitation, he pushed through, pulling her inside. Darkness swallowed them. The air was damp and cold. He pressed his hand against her lips. Quiet. They crouched in the shadows, breathing hard. The hunters passed by, their hounds sniffing, growling. The girl clung to him, her heart racing against his chest. One hunter stopped near the vines, his blades slicing through. For a moment the cave was exposed. The human raised the rod, ready to fight to the death. But the hunter's hound suddenly turned its head, distracted by another scent deeper in the forest. The hunter cursed and followed. The footsteps faded. The forest grew quiet again. The girl sagged in his arms, tears in her glowing eyes. They will come again. They will never stop. I am their prize. The human held her close, his voice steady. Then we keep moving. We keep fighting. I will not let them take you. She buried her face against him, whispering, Why? Why risk your life for me when all I bring is danger? His answer was simple, his voice low but fierce. Because you are not a weapon. You are not a prize. You are someone who deserves to live free. And I will fight every hunter in this forest, if that is what it takes. The cave trembled with the sound of his words, and the girl wept silently. For the first time, her tears were not only of fear but of hope. The forest gave them shelter for only a short while. By the second night, the human knew they could not keep running forever. Their food was gone, his strength was fading, and the girl's glowing body grew weaker with each step. They needed help, someone who could give them shelter. He remembered an old hunter he had once traded with, a man who lived at the edge of the woods, hidden among broken towers from a forgotten war. That man had always spoken bitterly about the warlords. If anyone would help, it would be him. When they reached the crumbling stone hut, the man stepped out, his eyes sharp under heavy brows. He looked from the human to the trembling alien girl, his mouth twisted. You bring trouble to my door, friend. The human bowed his head. We need food, shelter, just for a night, please. The old man stared at the girl's glowing skin, recognition flashing in his eyes. His voice dropped. She is the one they seek. The human stepped in front of her, protective. She is not what they say. She only wants to live. The silence stretched. The old man finally sighed. Come inside, but know this. Your presence will bring fire down upon me. Inside the hut, the fire burned low. The girl sat close to the flames, her eyes tired but watchful. She whispered to the human, We cannot trust him, his eyes hold hunger. The human touched her hand gently. We have no choice, rest. I will watch. But he was more tired than he admitted. His eyelids grew heavy, and before long sleep claimed him. The sound of heavy boots woke him. He jolted upright, reaching for his rod. The door of the hut was open, and outside voices shouted. He rushed out to see the old man standing with armored soldiers, his hand pointing at them. There, take them both, I want my reward, the girl cried out, her glowing hands gripping the human's arm. I told you, we are betrayed. The soldiers closed, in weapons aimed. The old man sneered. Forgive me, but a man must survive, and she is worth more than gold. She is worth freedom. The human's blood boiled. His grip on the rod tightened. He pulled the girl behind him, his voice sharp. You would sell a child for your freedom? You are no better than the warlords. The old man's smirk faltered, but the soldiers stepped forward, circling. One of them spat. Step aside, human. You cannot fight us all. The human stood tall, his chest rising and falling. Then, you will see how much one life is worth. The first soldier lunged, and the human swung the rod with all his strength. The clash rang out, sparks flying. The girl screamed as another soldier aimed a blaster at him. In that instant, her body reacted. Her skin blazed with light, flooding the night with silver glow. The blast hit him square in the chest, but the light wrapped around him like a shield. The wound closed as fast as it appeared. The soldiers staggered back in shock, their voices trembling. "What is she? What is she doing?" The girl's eyes widened, her voice breaking. I don't know. It just happened." The human felt the warmth of her light flooding through him. His pain vanished, his body strong again. He lifted the rod and struck with a force that seemed more than human. The soldiers fell back one after another, blinded by her glow and driven by his fury. The old man screamed, "Stop her! Kill them both!" But his voice shook with fear. The soldiers tried to regroup, but the girl stepped forward. Her trembling hands raised. Her light grew brighter, a wave of energy spreading out. The soldiers stumbled, their weapons falling from their hands. Their armor cracked under the pressure. Their cries filled the air. The human stood at her side, his voice echoing like thunder. "You will not take her." The last soldier turned and fled. Dragging the others into the forest, the old man backed away, his face pale. "She is a demon, you cannot control her." The human's eyes burned with anger. "She is no demon. She is alive. She is free, and she is under my protection." The old man tried to protest, but the human stepped forward, his voice sharp as a blade. "If you value your life, never speak her name again." The man fled into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. The girl fell to her knees, her glowing body dimming. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't mean to. I didn't want to hurt them. I only wanted to protect you." The human knelt beside her, lifting her chin gently. "You did not hurt them. You showed them you are more than a cage, more than their lies. You saved us both." She stared at him, her glowing eyes shimmering with hope and fear. "But if this power grows, will you still see me as a person? Or will you see me as they do?" He held her hands tightly, his voice steady. "I will always see you as you, never a weapon, never a prize, only you." Her breath caught, her lips trembled, and she whispered, "Then I will fight with you, not just to survive, but to live." The fire of her glow faded into the night, and for the first time she felt her strength was not a curse but a gift, because she no longer carried it alone. The night was silent after the battle. The forest no longer echoed with hunters' horns or the clash of weapons. Only the sound of the stream nearby and the crackle of the fire filled the air. The human sat close to the flames, his chest rising and falling with tired breaths. Beside him, the alien girl leaned against his shoulder, her body weak but alive. For the first time since the market of chains, she was not behind bars, not running, not hiding in shadows. She was free. The thought felt unreal, like a dream she did not dare touch. She whispered, her voice soft, "You should have left me back in the market. You would not be hunted. You would not be hurt. I only bring you danger." The human turned to her, his eyes steady. "If I had left you, I would not be alive either. Maybe my body would still breathe, but my soul would be dead. Saving you gave my life meaning. Don't take that from me." Her glowing eyes widened, shimmering with tears. She pressed her small hands against her chest. "Meaning? No one has ever said my life could mean anything." He smiled faintly, weary but warm. "Then let me be the first." The forest seemed to hold its breath. The firelight danced across her silver patterns, casting long shadows. She looked at her hands, at the glow she once hated, and whispered, "All my life, they told me I was only blood, only DNA, that my worth was what others could take from me, but you see something else, don't you?" He nodded. "I see someone strong enough to survive chains, someone brave enough to keep hoping, someone who deserves to live free." Her tears slipped down, falling onto her trembling hands. For the first time, her tears were not from fear or pain. They were from hope, fragile but real. She moved closer, curling against him. Her voice was a whisper carried by the wind. "Then if my life is mine, if I can choose, I choose to stay with you." The human froze for a heartbeat. His throat tightened, his eyes softened. He wrapped an arm around her, holding her gently. "Then you will never be alone again." The dawn came slowly, golden light filtering through the tall trees. The air smelled fresh, carrying the promise of a new day. The girl stood at the edge of the forest, her bare feet brushing the grass. She looked out at the horizon, the mountains rising far beyond. For the first time, she was not afraid of what lay ahead. She whispered to the human, "What now?" "The warlords will keep hunting. The old man will spread word of me. The galaxy will not forget I exist." The human stepped beside her, his face calm. "Then we do not run anymore. We build a life. We protect it together. Whatever comes, we face it side by side." Her lips trembled into a small smile. Side by side. They walked until the forest gave way to rolling fields. The sky stretched wide above them, filled with endless possibilities. The girl touched the earth, feeling the grass between her fingers. Every step felt like a promise. Every breath, like a gift. As they moved, the girl spoke again, her voice steady. "When I was in the cage, I thought my story would end there. I thought I would die in chains. But you gave me a new story. You gave me a future." She turned to him, her eyes glowing with emotion. "So let me promise you this. No matter how many hunters come, no matter what the warlords send, I will not give up. I will fight. Because I finally have something worth fighting for." The human looked at her, pride filling his chest. "And what is that?" She smiled, tears glistening in her glowing eyes. "A life. My life. And you in it." The wind rustled through the fields as though the world itself heard her vow. They kept walking, step after step, the horizon opening before them like an unwritten page. Behind them, the forest still carried echoes of the chase, and somewhere in the distance, warlords planned their hunt. But none of that mattered in this moment. What mattered was the choice she had made, a choice no one could take from her. She was no longer a nameless girl in a cage. She was no longer a weapon of DNA. She was herself, and she had chosen her own path. And as the sun rose higher, she held the human's hand tightly, whispering one last time, "I am free because you refuse to walk away."